Imagine this. You tell your ESL students, talk with your partner about a place you want to travel to, and then silence. How do you get your students to actually talk in an ESL class? This is so awkward and a little bit tricky. Let me help you. Hi, my name is Megan. I have been an ESL teacher in China for over 10 years. I'm also getting my PhD in education, and let me tell you, I have had this awkward moment more times than I can count. There is nothing more uncomfortable. There's nothing more awkward. So let me share my tips and tricks for helping you get your students to talk. We're gonna need to do two things. First, we need to set the right environment, and two, we need to make sure we're properly preparing them. Now, I'm going to give you a bunch of ideas. All of these ideas are 100% proven. They definitely work, but every class is different. Every student is different, right? So you might need to try different combinations of them to see what works best for your classroom, but I promise all of these do work. I've used them over the past almost 15 years. Let me break it down for you. First, let's talk about creating the right environment where students feel like they can talk a little bit more. Something you can try is using pairs instead of groups. I often find that a lot of teachers will use different groups, 3 or 4 students together. That's great, that works really well. But if students are having trouble talking, it might be because they're in too large of a group. Now, if your students are quite shy or a little bit uncertain, maybe they don't want to speak out when there are 3 or 4 people in the group. They might feel better when it's just talking to one other person. There are a couple of reasons for this. It can feel a little bit more pressure to have 3 or 4 people looking at you as you speak, and that pressure is taken away when it's just a one-on-one conversation. But sometimes too, there can be some problems with having like an alpha leader in a group. Maybe you have 4 students together and one student who has really good English is the one who's kind of leading the conversation and talking a lot, and the other ones just kind of default to the alpha leader in the group. So why not give it a try? Instead of having groups of students talk together, break it down into pairs. Maybe as they get more comfortable, then you can slowly add in more groups. Something I like to do as like a progression for this is have students start off in pairs, and then after they've fully discussed, where do you want to travel to? After those students have discussed, then I say turn behind you or in front of you and talk to those other 2 students and share your ideas with them. So first, these 2 students get to practice, and then these 2 students get to practice, and then they all get to come together and share their ideas after they've already talked through them. Then maybe after a little bit of time, then they would be ready to have a group of 4 people all talking and communicating together. But I find that this progression really helps. The second tip is to give them some space. When I first started teaching, after I would give the instruction, talk with your partner about a place you want to travel to, I would immediately be going around the room being like, what do you think? What do you think? Where do you want to go? Because I wanted to be involved in their conversations, but that can just put more pressure on the students. And also, if you're talking to this student over here and you're like, hey, where do you want to travel to? Maybe the students over there are like, teacher's not even paying attention to me. They're just paying attention to that group right there. So as awkward as it might feel, give the instruction and hang back. Don't hover around the students. Don't immediately single students out to talk to them. Let them work by themselves for a few minutes. This does a couple of things. It helps them feel a little bit more like, okay, the teacher is looking at me. All right. And it feels a little bit more like a class activity. The teacher is actively hanging back. Students now have to communicate. I even signal to students that I'm hanging back by doing a couple of things physically. So usually when I'm teaching in the classroom, I kind of move up closer to the students. I'm like in the aisle a little bit more. But when I give them an instruction, I'm backing away. Maybe I go back behind my desk. And another thing I always do is I grab my water bottle and I take a sip. I started doing this after I noticed that students would speak faster if I did it. It's like a subtle cue that, okay, I'm done. Now it's your turn to speak. I can't even talk. Look, I'm taking a drink of my water here. I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting. So just back off a little bit. Let them start the conversation. After things have kind of started going, after the gears have kicked in, then you can walk around and talk with individual students. Usually it's those first few seconds that really make a difference in getting the students to just start the conversation. Starting is always the hard part, right? Number 3 might sound silly or obvious, but I find it works really well. And that's just to remind the students that this is just practice. Remind the students that this is a low stakes environment. This is just practice. It's okay if you forget a word. It's okay if you hesitate. It's okay if you pronounce something wrong. We are just focusing on practice. I just did this the other week with one of my classes. They had kind of been struggling with having a longer conversation. They would talk for like 30 seconds and then just stop. And so I was just upfront with them and honest. I told them like, hey, the point of this is just so you have a chance to practice your English more. You get to practice new grammar, practice new vocabulary, practice new pronunciation. Don't worry if you make a mistake. I'm not listening to every single person who's talking, and I'm certainly not giving you a score. Just chat, just see how much you can say. Just give it a try. It shouldn't be this shocking, but some of the students literally had like light bulb moments. I could see it. And they were like, oh, okay. And from that day, they did so much better. It sounds so simple, but it actually works. Number 4 is don't always force students to present in front of the class. When I first started teaching, one of the biggest pieces of advice I got, and one of the most damaging, I think, was that you should always have the students come to the front of the room to present their conversation. So for example, where do you want to travel to? Or you have, you're at a restaurant, one person is a waiter and one person is a customer. They have to come up to the front of the room and present and act it out for everybody. I really don't like to do this. I will only do it carefully. I will only do it at certain times with specifically chosen reasons, because I think it creates this feeling of dread for a lot of students. Now, maybe if your students are really outgoing, they really enjoy this, like I said, it works for some classes and for some students, but for my Chinese students, they were really, really shy. They didn't want to be the center of attention standing in front of the room. And so what would happen is I would tell the students to, start your conversation. Where do you want to travel to? And it would just be this impending sense of dread that settled onto the classroom. And a lot of students would also not prepare. That way, when I called on them to come up to the front of the class, they said like, oh, we didn't prepare well, we didn't finish. And so they would actively not practice so they could try to use that as an excuse. Even if I didn't let it be a valid excuse, they would still try it. That's not what we're looking for. We don't want our classroom to be this like stressful, dread, high pressure. I know I have to present this in front of everybody and it's going to be so awkward and so embarrassing. Just let them practice without the pressure of having to present or having to perform. Let them feel like this is just another chance for them to make progress in their English language journey. This one kind of goes along with reminding the students that it's just practice. Is I remind the students that this is for their own good. I now as a teacher am very upfront and very direct with my students about what we're doing in class and why we're doing it. I tell them what the purpose of our listening exercise is. What is the purpose of our vocabulary exercise? What's the purpose of our speaking practice? The purpose of our speaking practice is for you. And so you actually have a chance to practice speaking English. And I say things like, I know you're learning so many vocabulary words in that other class. Can you remember them all? And they're like, no, there are way too many words. I tell them, well, in my class, if you have a chance to use them, you have a better chance of remembering them. So try to use those vocabulary words in my class so you'll be able to remember them. I remind them that English is for use. You want to travel, right? So practice speaking now so that when you're in a high pressure situation, like you're at a train station in another country, you feel more comfortable speaking out and asking for help and getting guidance. Do you want to use English in your jobs? Okay, well, guess what? You're gonna have to speak English. So do it now, practice now. This is for your own good. This is a low stakes environment. I'm here to help you. We're all learning together. We all have the same goal of practice, practice, practice. I find that the more upfront and honest I am with students, the more I can appeal to their logic. Of course, you're always gonna have some students who are like, I don't care about travel, I don't care about this. But generally, I find a lot of people are in English classes because they do genuinely want to learn. This one might be controversial, but let them use their phones. Now, I teach at a university, so I'm essentially teaching adults, and I tell my students they're allowed to use phones in my class. In their other classes, they're not allowed to. The teachers won't let them. But I tell them that I want them to use their phones because we have a limited time in class. And I often find when students are really hesitant about speaking, it's because they're worried that they can't complete the sentence or complete the conversation. They are aware that there are tons of gaps in their knowledge. And so I find that when I let them use their phones, it relieves that pressure of like, oh, but what if I don't know the word? Oh, but what if I don't know how to pronounce it? But what if I forget the grammar? It's okay. It's okay to pause. It's okay to hesitate. Remember, this is all for practice. Just grab your phone and search the word and keep going. I found that the classes when I first started teaching, I didn't allow students to use their phone. And there were a lot more of these moments where students would just get hung up and they didn't know how to say the next thing and they didn't know how to explain themselves or express themselves. So they just gave up. And now they have no excuse to give up because they have their phone to help them as much as possible. The lower level students will get a little bit of burst of confidence because they know they can actually complete the conversation even if they need some help from their phone. And the higher level students as well kind of view it as a challenge. Like, can I say a lot without using my phone? Let's see. I really will stick to this idea that let them use their phones if you can. Maybe you need to modify this if you have younger students. Maybe it's something like dictionaries. Maybe they're allowed to raise their hand and ask you for any question, ask you for any vocabulary word. Maybe you'll be writing certain words on the board that they might need a little bit later. But creating an environment where it's just practice. It's okay if it's not perfect. Look up the word. It's fine. I find that really helps. Another reason they might not be talking is because they don't feel comfortable around their classmates. Maybe they feel a little bit awkward or a little bit shy in that environment. For my students specifically, they're Chinese students, and yeah, they're really shy about speaking to people that they are not like directly sitting next to, that it's not their direct friend. So what can you do with that? Spend a little bit more time on building that safe classroom atmosphere. Have more review games, have more rapport building exercises. Be a little bit more personable with them so that they're a little bit more personable with you. There are a lot of things that you can do to kind of break down the barriers, build up relationships with students. I find that if students are comfortable with you, that's the first step. Once they're comfortable with you, then it's easier for them to get comfortable with all the other strangers who are in the class. I have a bunch of videos about different ways you can do this. I have a video about how to build relationships and build rapport with your students. I have a ton of games, like review games, but also icebreaker games. I'll link them down below. Definitely check them out because I find that this is a little bit more of a long-term thing, but it helps a lot. Just starting the class with a 5-minute review game kind of breaks down those barriers. It gives them a chances to laugh. Maybe it even brings out inside jokes inside your class. And maybe that also means having less high pressure questions instead of asking them, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? What do you dream about? You're asking them a little bit more casual things while they get to know each other. Where are you from? Where do you want to travel to? What are your hobbies? Things like that are low pressure to share with somebody you don't know very well. So just do what you can to break down those barriers so students feel more comfortable with you and they also feel more comfortable with each other. The second section is preparing your students. A lot of times I find that this is where teachers go wrong. They tell the students, talk to your partner about a place you want to travel to, but students don't know the verbs that they need. They don't know the country names or the city names. They don't know what else to say about the topic. They say, I want to go to Paris. And they don't really know what else you expect from them. So do they have the building blocks they need? Provide those for the students. Make sure your students have the vocabulary words they need to complete the conversation. Give them some sentence structures. Write them on the board or write them on the PowerPoint. I would like to travel to insert city or country name. Talk through the grammar. Give them sentence structures. Give them guiding questions that will help them really communicate. Something else that's really helpful is giving them an example of what you want them to do. Before you say, hey, talk to your partner about this, give them an example. Instead of saying, talk to your partner about your hobbies, say, what's your favorite hobby? Oh, my favorite hobby is playing basketball. Oh, really? How often do you play basketball? I play basketball every Saturday. Why do you like playing basketball? Give them an example of how you want the conversation to go. I usually find this helps as well with them continuing the conversation, getting some ideas. If you just directly say, talk about your hobbies, a lot of students are thinking, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to say. Another thing you can do, and I use this all the time for low level and really shy students, is give them 1 or 2 minutes to jot down their ideas before they have to talk to their partner. So if I just say, talk to your partner about your hobby, they have to immediately turn to their partner and think, okay, I don't know what I want to say. What is my hobby? I don't even know what my hobby is. If you give them 1 or 2 minutes, they can maybe search some words on their phone, but they can also just get their thoughts in order and they can think, okay, what is my hobby? Okay, why do I like it? They can kind of prepare for the conversation. So by the time that you say, all right, everybody, turn to your partner and talk to your partner, it's easier for them to jump in. You shouldn't have those like awkward silences. And also, when you have that awkward silence, it affects everybody. Even if this one group is ready to talk, if nobody else is talking, they're gonna be looking around the room feeling awkward. So I really find it helps let students have a little bit of time to get their thoughts together, then they can share. And as they get more practice with this, as their English progresses, as they get more familiar with each other, they might not need to do this as much, but for low-level students, for shy students, especially at the beginning of the semester, it's okay. You can spare 1 or 2 class minutes. It's fine. Just give them a little bit of time to get their thoughts together before they're expected to output. Don't neglect your homework. Your homework can actually be a great way to increase the class speaking time as well. If your students are having trouble speaking, maybe it's because they're just not used to speaking. So give them a homework assignments where instead of writing, they're actually speaking. I love to do this. Have students answer a question and like just record it on their phone. You can have the students send it to you or just have them, listen to it in class and check it that way. Often I find students are really hesitant in speaking because they just don't do it enough. They're just not used to hearing themselves speak in English, and having them do it by themselves in the privacy of their own room can sometimes help break down those barriers and make them feel a little bit more comfortable. Something else you could do is you could have students submit that for homework. They have to answer a question, what is your hobby? How often do you do it? But then when you come back to class, at the very beginning of class as a warm-up, they have to tell their partner their answers. It's a really great way to allow them to practice it first in the comfort of their own room, the privacy of their own room, and then they get to practice it with someone else. Along with that, you could give them homework where they have to prepare for the next class. Tell the students that next class, you're gonna have to share with your partner about a place you want to travel to. So for your homework, I want you to write a few sentences. I want you to search some vocabulary words. Tell them what they're expected to do. Basically, you just need to prepare them. Make sure they know the vocabulary. Make sure they know the sentences that they need to know. Make sure they've had enough time to think through their ideas and get ready before they talk. If you just make students say, hey, you, talk to you, it's gonna be awkward. It's not gonna go as well. I have a ton of other ideas. To be honest, there is a third secret way to do this. It's like a bonus thing. It's that you might be asking the wrong questions. If you like, I can make another video all about that as well. Like I said, you can check out those videos about how to build better relationships with students, icebreaker games, review games. I also have a ton of videos about really good lesson plans ideas. These lesson plans are ones that I've used, so maybe you could use those in your classes. I know they work well in stimulating conversation and stimulating discussions, but just remember, you need to set the right environment and you need to prep the students properly in order for them to talk. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to watch more videos, you can check back for weekly videos, and I'll see you next time.